Hello, I'm Bianca, and I'm so excited to be back with the weekly video and the astrology guide of the week so you can navigate the astrology energies more effectively and more efficiently. The astrological weather, quote unquote, definitely affects us all. The level, though, varies, and definitely it's much more stronger if it affects something directly in our chart, then we feel it much more strongly. But even if we're not directly impacted, it is always helpful to know what's going on in the sky because what goes on above affects us down here. It helps us to know what to expect, to be able to explain the behavior of others, because often we can be indirectly affected as well. So knowing what's going on um, help us be prepared, know what to expect, and not be caught off guard. The astrological energies also play a major role in what goes on in the universe, and this has been proven time and time again. So, mundane astrology helps us predict even events on a global or local scale, depending on what we choose to look at. But in these weekly videos, my goal is to explain what the astrological energies mean, how they could play out on a personal level, as well as on a mundane or global level, and maybe give some tips on how to use them in a positive way in your own daily life. So let's jump right into the week of 24th to 30th of June, which is definitely a bit calmer week compared to the one we just had, in the sense that it's much less active. This week, we don't have a lot of major things going on. And at first glance, the major aspects might appear to be quite positive. Then we have a trine and two sextiles. That sounds great, right? The trine, two sextiles. Yeah, it sounds great, but there is always a but. There are a lot of things brewing under the surface that we should be aware of, as the energies can really make us take uncalculated risks or act impulsively and therefore get into trouble, or we could end up losing money or regretting our actions. That's the best case scenario. And precisely because trines and sextiles facilitate the flow of energy, we need to be extra careful, as we will be prone to making emotional, subjective decisions. So, emotionality, sensitivity, subjectivity, and impatience will be the driving force this week. And as I have already said, there are not many major aspects, but what we have going on is important. And Mercury is quite important this week because it has two major aspects to two of the slower planets, Saturn and Uranus. First, we have the Mercury-Saturn trine that's happening on the 26th. And Saturn is quite slow at the moment, as it will turn retrograde on the 29th. The same day, the other two aspects are happening. And the other two aspects are the Venus-Mars sextile and the Mercury-Uranus sextile. The Mercury-Uranus will happen, depending on where you are in the world, it could be on the 30th. But on the 29th of June is overall a very karmic day, a very faded day, I might say, but it's also connected to the 26th. So the energies of this week kind of work in combination, and therefore their impact and their influence is much longer than their regular 1 or 2 days. And Mercury is very fast at the moment and out of bounds as well, if I remember correctly, and Venus also. So yeah, we would expect these energies to be kind of shorter, but because they are connected to each other, they have a longer duration. The day of the Mercury-Saturn trine, we also have Venus squaring the nodes, which is something that I find to be quite important for two reasons. First, because by squaring the nodes, and I will say in a while which degrees, it's around the 11th degree, but by squaring the nodes, Venus becomes the apex of a minor or mini T-square with the nodes in Aries Libra axis. And this happens on the 26th. And this is important because Venus squaring the nodes is also the first square in their synodic cycle, which started on 18th of April, very near the eclipse, the total solar eclipse we had on 8th of April. And I think the nodes were right at the degrees they were during the eclipse as well, when the synodic cycle began. But it was definitely within the eclipse period, so that's really quite important. So this means that on the 26th, we might have some events or situations related to something that started around that time. Some things might need to be adjusted, some developments come up, and we need to deal with some things related to the beginning of the synodic cycle. Or it could even be related to events going back to last July, when the nodes moved to the Aries Libra axis. That could also be a possibility that we could have a connection to that time period as well. The point is that with the square, some adjustments will now need to be made, and this will kind of happen whether we like it or not, because with the nodes, it's like of faded situations. Or it could also be related to money. Venus rules money as well. It's not just about relationships. And some faded events related to money or even food, because Venus also rules the sign of Taurus, which is related to food. On 29th June, Saturn stations retrograde at 1925 Pisces, and it will be retrograde until the 15th of November, where it will station direct at 1241 Pisces. And I will mention a little bit down the line when the shadow period started and who are more affected by Saturn's movement. But actually, on that day, on the 29th, we're also going to have a lot of other important things going on. And that's why I already said that I consider the 29th a very important day. On that day, we also have the third quarter moon phase of the new moon that began on 6th June. And we just had the full moon on the 21st, 22nd, depending on where you are in the world. So the third quarter phase is another major point in the moon cycle. And now things are starting to be taking their final course. The moon is waning, and we will be getting ready to approach the next new moon. And the moon will be in Aries during that time for the third quarter moon phase, squaring, and the sun in Cancer, and will also conjunct the North Node. So apart from the fact that it's the third quarter phase, the moon squaring, conjuncting the nodes and squaring Venus as well, triggers again the aspect we had on the 26th and the T-square. So that's how both dates are connected, and with other things as well. But this is one of the points that show the connection. We also have the Venus-Mars sextile, which adds to the passion, the impatience, the sexual drive, but also instant gratification. Venus-Mars together speak about impatience. Whatever we want it right away, and we cannot wait. There is no patience, basically. And Venus is in the sign of Cancer, which is also more subjective, more emotional, more sensitive. Mars is in Taurus, a sign that is related to money as well as relationships, but it's not in a good placement. It's in detriment, in fall position, detriment, and Venus is the dispositor. So basically, Venus decides, and Venus makes the decisions based on emotions and subjectivity, just like Mercury, and with the Sun in Cancer as well. This is quite amplified. These energies are quite amplified. So whatever we want it immediately. And Venus is also in a cardinal sign too. So yeah, that's why I said that even though the energies or the trines and sextiles appear to be positive for this week, the fact is that we're prone to be making rash decisions, decisions that we don't think them through, decisions based on how we feel rather than reality. At the same time, Saturn, the same day, Saturn stations retrograde. So Saturn's energy is really powerful and strong because when planets are stationary, their energy is continuous and therefore it's much more intense and strong. Because it's in Pisces, it brings on anxiousness, concerns, worries, fear, insecurities, possibly guilt as well. And Pisces is also the 12th sign, and it's related to karma by definition. So we just need to be able to connect to our intuition and instinct, because our logic right now that Mercury goes through the sign of Cancer, it's not very strong. And therefore, we need to connect to our intuition, our instinct, just allow ourselves to listen to what our stomach, our belly wants to tell us. Apart from the fact that the moon rules Cancer, and both are related to the belly usually talks to us or gives us signals with regard to what we feel, our intuition. It warns us. So pay attention to the signs. And Saturn will station retrograde at 1925. And that is also the degree that the Mercury will trine Saturn on the 26th. I forgot to check when the Mercury-Saturn conjunction happened, but it was sometime in February, I would say, or maybe even January, because Mercury turned retrograde in the sign of Aries, so it spent more than 2 months. So it might have been February or March. And we also have Mercury sextile Uranus, and they were also conjunct on 18th of May, Mercury and Uranus, I believe. I think I wrote it down a little bit further down. Venus and Mars conjuncted on 17th of February together with Pluto at 0 Aquarius, and Pluto was at 0 Aquarius. Venus and Mars conjuncted, I think it was at 3 or 4 degrees. And or somewhere around there. The sextile actually is related to that period, 14th to 17th of February. So this week, 2 days stand out, the 26th and the 29th, but they both connect to each other, so the impact is much longer. And the minor or hidden aspects and configurations that we have are related to Venus squaring the nodes that we said, and Uranus semi-squares the nodes. So Uranus is at the peak of a mini T-square between Venus, North Node, and Uranus. And Uranus triggers the Venus node midpoint as well. Uranus will be in a semi-square to the North Node for several days because it's a slow-moving planet, and right now is kind of moving even slower. On the 1st of September, it will turn retrograde. But the energy is stronger from the 28th of June to the 10th of July. And these energies could be talking about sudden or extreme financial losses because it works in combination with the other hard and hidden aspect, the Jupiter-Chiron semi-square, which also creates another minor T-square with Mercury, which could be talking the Uranus at the midpoint of Venus North Node could be talking about sudden breakups, sudden meetings, and infatuations, breaking up with someone and immediately falling in love with someone else, or overcoming some kind of relationship wounds because Chiron is in the relationship axis, talking a lot about the relationship or about relationship problems or difficult relationship topics and deciding to break up after all. The Venus node conjunction happened on 17th or 18th of April and lasted until will last until the 3rd of February 2025, when Venus will conjunct the North Node at the very end of Pisces again, 2942 Pisces. And the nodes will also have entered the Virgo Pisces axis, of course, because the conjunction will happen there. It will be just as soon as they ingress into their new axis. So this will be a rather important point in the timeline. But right now we're in the first square of the cycle, and so things related to topics or issues under the domain of Venus in Aries will, Venus in Cancer and node in Aries, will now need some kind of adjustment, or even under the domain of Venus in Aries, because that is where the initial conjunction happened and that is where the cycle began. And because Uranus activates and Uranus also forms a semi-square to Venus, it also connects to the Venus-Uranus conjunction that took place on the 18th of May at 2323 Taurus, which is another important date, as well as because we also, that day we had the Mars North Node conjunction on the 18th of May, which was very important. The Venus-Uranus conjunction was really important as it was a kite formation in the chart of the moment. And we also have a Jupiter-Chiron semi-square and a Mercury-Chiron square, which both could be triggering some pain or some old wound, some old trauma, or some bad news. Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini, so the news could be kind of on the negative side. Or we might have had overinflated expectations about something, and now we are kind of grounded or disappointed. Certainly, the combination forms another minor T-square between Mercury, Chiron, and Jupiter at the apex. And Jupiter, as I said, forms a semi-square to Chiron. So it's again an important, this semi-square, it's an important phase in the synodic cycle of Jupiter-Chiron, which started, which first of all, it's a long cycle. It has a duration of 14 years approximately, but also it's the first important phase in the cycle that began on 12th of March. And when Jupiter, last year, 2023, 12th of March, 2023, when Jupiter was transiting Aries and conjuncted Chiron. at 1426 Aries to be precise. So the Mercury square Chiron aspect also connects to 1920 March of this year and the triple conjunction between Mars, Chiron, and the North Node in Aries. And this also happened more than one time because, as I said before a short while ago, Mercury turned retrograde in Aries, so it conjuncted Chiron more than one time. The North Node, it came very close to less than a degree, but the conjunction only took place one time. But from 29th of June to the 15th of November, Saturn will station retrograde, will turn retrograde, or will be traveling through Pisces retrograde in a retrograde motion. And the retrograde will begin at 1925 Pisces to 1241. And the shadow period started on 23rd of March this year, shortly after the triple conjunction between Mercury, Chiron, North Node, at 1242. So March, as we know, it was a quite important month. We had a lot of activations going on. But from the 29th of June and until the 15th of November, mutable signs from 20 degrees to 12 degrees, going backward, will start being impacted and will experience or see situations that had already appeared in their lives, or they already received the signs of what the topic would be or what the matter would be, and it would be related to where the sign of Pisces falls in their natal chart or where the sign of Capricorn falls in their natal chart, because Saturn rules Capricorn. And they will have to either make adjustments, think about or review some past situations, and apply some changes. Saturn turns retrograde for approximately 4.5 months every year, or approximately 38% of the time. But in the weeks or days near the change of direction, the planet is practically stationary, or it moves really, really slow. So there can be some disorientation or our perspective shifts. The reason that our perspective shifts is because the planet basically is not really or actually turning retrograde, but it's only an illusion. It appears to be moving backwards. So, and the way we see things, this is how we see the planet from Earth, but it's not actually moving backwards. So if we translate this into astrological language, what it means is that the way we see things changes. It's affected. And Saturn, when Saturn slows down or turns retrograde, we start to feel the energy more intensely. And what is Saturn about? It's about responsibilities, duties, burdens, commitments we undertake. And also we might feel tired. We might have lack of energy, especially because Saturn is in Pisces. We might feel unmotivated. Pisces is a sign that gives up easily, chooses the path of least resistance, doesn't like to get tired, likes to just sit, watch TV, it's less energetic. So during the time that Saturn is retrograde, we're given a chance to review, release, rethink structures in our lives, limits in our lives, duties, commitments we have undertaken, things we promised to do, and we may not have enough time to do everything. So all of these things, we will have to rethink them, especially if we are among the degrees that are being affected most. And these degrees are from the 12th to the 20th. So what we may need to do is to reduce simplify, prioritize. Saturn is about time, how fast the time flies. So we always, with Saturn, we always tend to realize that we don't have enough time to do everything. So we have to pick and choose what is the most important thing for us to do, prioritize, and focus on that. Spend our time wisely, basically, and not waste it. We can also expect some delays and blockages, like a back turn, but this will happen to give us the chance, the opportunity to rethink and to make some adjustments, to look back at things again. The universe is always very wise and gives us the time to go back and think about some stuff we did, whether we did them right or wrong, and change them. So Saturn is like giving us a second chance to retake the exam we failed. We can think about it this way as well. So the area that we can expect delays and blockages, as well as rethinking structures, duties, responsibilities, will be related to the house that Pisces rules in the natal chart and the house that Capricorn rules in the chart. So, for example, you see if Pisces is second house and Capricorn is 12th house, that means that we might be losing money, or it could be about financial matters, financial restrictions. Maybe we need to rethink our budget. Maybe we lend money to someone and they are not giving it back, or we lost money in an investment, or we lost our job, or we got a pay cut or something like that. So we have to, or maybe we're just, spending money without budgeting well enough. With Pisces, this is quite common. We don't know where our money goes. It's a bit messy. So we might, with Saturn, we might need to put a bit of structure around our finances. It could be having to rethink our finances due to stress, concerns, losses as well. It might be that we don't know what we're doing with our money, and we need to be more careful with our spending and keeping track of it. On a mundane level, though, Saturn will be turning retrograde in the sign of Pisces, the natural 12th house, and rules, and also which rules Pisces is the natural 12th house, and Capricorn the natural 10th house, because Saturn rules Capricorn, and also Aquarius as the traditional ruler. But the 10th house has to do with government, structures, authority in general. If we look at it with regards to Aquarius as well, it's related to communities, groups, large organizations, people with the same interests in the world. Also, it could be about television stations, electrical power stations, and stuff like that. So Pisces and the 12th house are related to areas of isolation, prisons, hospitals, mental institutions, the sea, faraway countries, migrants, refugees, orphans, homeless people, the disabled, the minorities, secret enemies, espionage as well. So these are matters that might take a back turn during the next 4.5 months. And our government might announce, Capricorn might announce new measures, or they might rethink some of their policies related to homeless, to the disabled, some of the benefits that these people receive, or maybe the migration policy. It might become stricter, or some policies that were adapted while Saturn was moving direct now will have to be rethought and changed, probably. So governments might become stricter when it comes to such matters. But when it comes to taking advantage of the energy on a personal level, with Saturn retrograde in Pisces, we can review projects we have been working on and make adjustments, or we can take old unfinished projects and complete them during this period. So most affected are the mutable signs Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, 18 to 20 degrees, or those who have birthdays close to 9 to 11 June, 11 to 14 September, 11 to 14 December, 10 to 12 March, plus or minus a day. Cancers and Scorpios, 18 to 20 degrees, receive the energies in a trine, and these are those born between 10 to 12 July or 11 to 13 November. And for Scorpios, it is especially important for Scorpios born during those days, 11 to 13 November or 18 to 20 degrees, because in their own natal chart, their natal sun forms a grand trine with Mercury and Saturn. So those born 11 to 13 November on 26th of June need to focus on a goal or on or if they have been working on a goal that they have said from the past, think about it, review it, see if they can improve it in a way, and it's quite helpful for Scorpios especially. In the chart of the Saturn stationing retrograde, the configuration is a ball with Pluto as the lead planet and Mercury as the last planet. And with Pluto being the first planet, crisis situations can be starting that will lead to a lot of negotiations or disillusionment or a lot of going back and forth. Mercury is the last planet. So Saturn is at the midpoint of Mars Chiron, as well as the Uranus North Node midpoint too, and this is also important. And Pluto is the leading planet at the midpoint of Sun Uranus. And this is also important too. The Uranus North Node midpoint can be talking about an extreme political group that wants to bring radical changes and reforms, but Saturn at the midpoint sort of blocks it or makes it more difficult, or it could mean that traditional conservative governments are pushed out of the way by modern, progressive, extreme parties. And this is important because France and the UK will have elections in early July, and this energy, because we're talking about slow-moving planets, it has a longer duration. It could mean that we might see surprises in the UK and the French elections, maybe changes to the establishment. Definitely Uranus is expect the unexpected, and Pluto talks about radical changes. Mars Chiron is a midpoint that can be talking about injuries, wounds, fires, burns, violence. Saturn triggering it could be talking about mass deaths or in a violent situation. It could be a terrorist attack, it could be an attack. I'm not ruling out any terrorist attacks as well during the next couple of months or more, because anyway, this chart lasts for 4.5 months anyway, but because of other energies in the sky, violence will continue, especially in July when we have the Mars conjunction Uranus. Those who are interested can go back and listen to my word predictions for 2024, in which I looked mostly at Mars's cycles and Mars's energy, and I explained why this year is a very violent year as well. But going back to this week, the Sun-Uranus midpoint talks about intense situations, accidents, attacks on government leaders, cyber attacks as well, maybe also wide-scale black power blackouts. With Pluto triggering, we could be hearing about the death or the end of a government leader, or it would be talking about radical changes in government, in governments as well. But these important midpoints will be activated every time a planet triggers this point of this chart, and until February when Saturn will turn direct. And that point is the 19 degrees, 25 minutes of the mutable signs. On this chart, the moon, the chart of Saturn stationing retrograde, the moon is in Aries. And as soon as it goes into Taurus, it will square Pluto and also will trigger the Sun-Uranus midpoint. And this will happen the day after, on the 30th of June. So when the moon goes into Gemini, it will square Saturn and will trigger the other two midpoints that I have just explained. And the moon triggering from Gemini will happen around 3 or 4th of July, depending on the location. So 4th of July is also the Independence Day of the United States, which is an important, always is an important day, the birthday of the United States. And we will have this condition maybe in the solar return chart of the United States. That's I just thought about this, but it's quite important that this circumstance. It definitely talks about violence and extreme violence, maybe even the death of the head of the government or a leader, because it's Sun, Uranus, Pluto. The first activations of this configuration by the moon will happen, as I said, 30th of June and 3 or 4th of July. But another quite major activation will happen when Mars ingresses Gemini and reaches this degree, 1925, the point of the Saturn stationing retrograde. And this will happen on 19th of August, another important day. 19th August is a very, very important day, and I would like you to remember it, 19th of August. On that day, a lot of important things are going on. For example, we have lunation on 27 Leo squaring Uranus. I think it's on that day. Uranus will be very slow as it will be turning retrograde a few days later on 1st of September around 27 Taurus. Mercury will be retrograde and will be in Kazimi condition, which means it will be very close to the sun. And this not only is important because it's rare, it doesn't happen every day, but it also marks the beginning of a new Sun-Mercury synodic cycle and closes the 4-month cycle that began in April. And this is this will be a new 4-month cycle, but we have a lot of intensity during that day. So it means that the next 4 months will be extremely intense, possibly violent, and it will be the period during which the presidential elections will happen, because that cycle will last for 4 months. And that means around late December. So 19th of August, Mars will be triggering the Saturn stationing RX point and the related midpoints as well. So, yep. Let's look at who is affected most by the aspects of the week. From the Mercury trine Saturn at 1925 Cancer Pisces I've already said who they are affected. This one is excellent for Scorpios, the 18 to 20 degrees, because it forms a grand trine with their natal sun. On the 26th of June, Venus squares the North Node at 11:24 Cancer, 11:28 Cancer, Aries. Venus is in Cancer, the node is in Aries, and the influence is one day before, one day after. Most affected are those who have important personal planets or planets in general, or important points like ascendant, MC, or the angles at between 10 to 12 of the cardinal signs: Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. And those are those born between 31st of March and 2nd of April, 1 to 3rd of July, 3rd to 5th of October, 31 January to 2nd of February, plus minus 1 day. Also affected are those born around 18 April, when the conjunction happened, as well as those born around 6th of April or 8th of April, or the day of the total solar eclipse. And the relevant degrees, the same degrees of the other cardinal signs, are also impacted. The opposition will happen on 4th of September, and the third square on 14 November at 3:58 Capricorn Aries. So Venus will be in Capricorn, the node will be in Aries, and Saturn will be the dispositor of Venus, and we will be stationing direct on 14th of November. Basically, it will be stationary again on 14th of November. On the 20th of June, Friday, Mercury squares Chiron at 23:11 Cancer Aries, and the influence is about 12 hours, because Mercury moves really fast, and it affects most the 22 to 24 degrees of the cardinal signs. And these degrees are those born around 12 to 14 April, 13 to 15 of July, 15 to 17th of October, 12 to 14 February, plus or minus a day. I keep checking my mic to make sure that it's on, because sometimes it turns off and the sound gets lost, but it's on, all right. 29th of June, Saturday, we have Venus sextile Mars at 15 Cancer, Taurus, Venus is in Taurus, Venus is in Cancer, Mars is in Taurus. The influence is one day before, one day after, and Venus Mars sextile is very positive for the Pisces and Virgos, 14 to 16 degrees, and also Scorpios and Capricorns, 14 to 16 degrees. Saturn turning retrograde on the 29th. We spoke about who is affected most. And Sunday, 30th of June or 29th of June, depending on the location, Mercury sextiles Uranus at 26 Cancer Taurus, and the influence is again just 12 hours, because Mercury moves quite fast. This is very good again for Virgos and Pisces, 25 to 27 degrees. Also for Scorpios, Capricorns, 25 to 27 degrees. And with this aspect, we could be expecting sudden news, accidents, because again, we're kind of rushing. We are not thinking rationally, we're thinking more subjectively. So we might not think things through. Accidents are possible, airplane accidents, accidents involving mass transportation means, nervousness, again, because the feelings are very much triggered this week. We have a lot of water energies going on. So I do think that nervousness will be an issue, especially at the end of the week. But on the positive part, we could be coming up with new ideas, sudden solutions. We can be thinking outside of the box. We can be having sudden meetings with people, running into people, hearing from people that we haven't spoken in a while, surprise visits, surprise communications. But maybe problems with electricity or electrical appliances, technology, computers. These are also things that might be on the forefront this week. Then we might be prone to driving fast as well. Or if we are upset about something, the Mercury in Cancer, we might just get in the car and start driving fast, hitting the radio at top volume, and do just that because we to deal with our emotions. Sudden unexpected changes in the areas affected in your own chart can also be affected. So, let me share the screen and look at some of the charts that or the graphs that they have prepared. I will look at the calendar first. Okay. I've already highlighted the week that we're looking at, and the week begins on the 24th of June. And as we can see, we have these hours are for Athens or Nicosia, and they are GMT +3. So you can adjust accordingly. But for Europe, basically, Eastern European daylight time, we have moon sextile Neptune, and then the moon goes void of course for a few minutes and moves into Aquarius early in the morning on Monday, tomorrow morning actually. Today it's Sunday, tomorrow morning. The moon moves into Aquarius and immediately conjuncts Pluto, which means that, okay, we don't start the day with a great, maybe we get up with a bad mood. But in Cyprus and Greece, it's a holiday tomorrow, so we might avoid this energy for a couple of hours. It lasts for a couple of hours. And then in the afternoon, though, the mood changes because we have the moon squaring Jupiter, and we might be more excited, more optimistic, more good feelings. Or we might be traveling because a lot of people will be returning back home from the long weekend. On the 25th, we have the moon in Aquarius squaring Mars in Taurus. So this could be, okay, it's 2 a.m. in the morning, so probably we might not be able to sleep. But in case we're awake, or for those who are in other areas of the world, and this aspect happens a bit earlier, be careful because it's easy to get like rebellious and kind of detached and get into arguments. For those who that it's a sleeping time, they might have a bit of a problem falling asleep. Then the next day, on the 26th, we have the moon squaring Uranus. Again, it's late, so we might be having sleep problems again. But what is important is that for the next 8 hours approximately, the moon will be void, of course, before ingressing Pisces. And when we have the moon void, of course, we avoid starting anything major, new, and we just keep doing what we have been doing. The energy is flat and unproductive. There is no push to give momentum to what we want to begin. So it's just better to stick with the routine and do nothing much. In some areas, it will be during the evening, so it will not matter that much. But early in the afternoon or in the afternoon, mid-afternoon, we're going to have the trine of moon with the sun. And immediately afterwards, the Venus square the nodes. And Mercury trining Saturn again. All of these are happening in quick succession. But anyway, the Venus node aspect and Mercury trine will be influencing the entire day. So I think this day, it will be a bit of emotional, because the moon will also be in Pisces. It will be squaring Jupiter at the end of the day, for example, and Jupiter is in Gemini in detriment. So maybe we get disappointed, as I said, as I explained before. So we're being very careful with what we decide and what we do. I think it might be the best way to use this energy is by doing meditation, yoga, writing, or for those who are into art or music, yeah, it could be a very positive energies to use, because the feelings can definitely be expressed, and Saturn in Pisces can help give form to these dreams or form to art. So for such things, it could be very helpful. On Thursday, the 27th, we have basically trines, the moon trines all the planets in Cancer and conjuncts Saturn as well, as it does every month. So here again, we might be feeling restricted, or we might want to express our feelings, and we might feel kind of heavy. Friday the 28th, we don't have too many things going on with the moon. The aspects are again a little bit positive, except the conjunction with yeah, we might have again trouble sleeping a little bit, even though it's a sextile with Uranus. And we might feeling tired the next day when moon conjuncts Neptune. And then we have the moon void, of course, for just a few minutes until it ingresses Aries, and sextiles Pluto shortly afterwards. 29th is the important day of the month, and right after midnight, we have the first square between the sun and moon. Then the sun conjuncts the north node early in the morning. Mercury sextile Mars, moon square Venus, and Saturn retrograde. So it's an intense day altogether, overall, with a lot of things. So that day, definitely, we are all going to feel it, even if we are affected directly or not. When we have so many energies going on, there is no way that we're not going to feel it in the air. It's kind of impossible. And then we see the Mercury sextile Uranus, and this aspect will also be triggered early next Sunday morning by the moon. Something again, sudden news, maybe news that upset us or and make us enthusiastic as well. These energies can help us do something different. It's a Sunday, we can take a short excursion somewhere and just spend the day. But the moon will be void, of course, from almost 8 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. But because it's a Sunday, we don't need to start anything new or do anything heavy. We can just relax and take advantage of the moon being void of course. And then it will enter Taurus, and right away it will square Pluto, which I have already talked about, triggering the 26th and the aspects that I have already spoken about. Let's see. The graphs, the graphic ephemeris, we can see here, this is the 26th, but we can see that the moon from the day before starts activating. 26, it's a quite busy energetic with astrology energies day, and the 29th as well. But on the 28th, the energies kind of continue and the moon triggers as well. So 26, 27, actually 26, 27, 29th, but late during the day on the 26th probably. On the next graph, we can see some of the minor aspects as well. And we can see that the week begins with the quincunx between Sun and Pluto. This actually is happening today on Sunday, but it gives like, it's like a psychological aspect. I think that's more to the tiredness, to the lack of motivation, or yeah, but actually, okay, it's not very strong at this moment. The next day, we have the Mars triggering the nodes, and also the semi-square between Venus and Uranus. It's active on the 25th more. And the square and a half between the moon and the sun. So the 25th can be a nervous day. It could be something sudden could upset us, or there might be some misunderstandings, not so much willingness to compromise, let's say, with others. Or we might feel that others do not appreciate us for some reason because Venus is in Cancer. And the 26th, the energies carry over from the day before, and we have the Jupiter semi-square Chiron as well, starting, and we see picking up because it will perfect later, but it's already starting to work. Venus square the North Node, Mercury trine Saturn. So even though we have to be not so dark red and green bar, I still think that the energies are not so on the positive side. And they carry over on the 27th too, where we have the Uranus starting to form a semi-square to the North Node, which again will pick up later in July. Now it's the beginning of the energy starting to be felt. The sextile between Venus and Mars for 3 days, one day before and one day after, or a little bit more as well. Yeah, it starts 2 days before and it lasts 2 days after because the aspects of Mars have a longer duration. They're a bit more because it's a slower planet. Mars semi-square Neptune as well on the 28th. Yeah, so on the 28th, the energies are a bit intense. So the strong energies of the 29th will be felt from the 28th because as you can see, a lot is going on the day before. And we have the Mars in a semi-square to Neptune, which can also cause the or prompt us to act impulsively, not think things through, be wanting to escape, basically avoid responsibilities. And Mars and the Mercury, the mini or minor T square between Mercury, Chiron, and Jupiter also is peaking on that day. So it's definitely carrying over on the 29th as well. I think it's pretty obvious. And let's look at the astrocartography of the Saturn stationing retrograde chart, which will be valid for until February. Here is Saturn. We have one Saturn activation. The line goes through very near Brazil and meets Jupiter, Uranus, and Mars very near Greenland. Here, the Mars line. So this area here, from Greenland down and going very near Brazil, is the I don't know, is the Atlantic Ocean. I'm not sure. It's affected. Also, here in New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and sorry, not New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Australia, and the Saturn meets Jupiter near Melbourne, then Uranus on the south coast or South Sea or below Australia, and Mars further down near Antarctica as well. And here we see the Saturn starting from the ascendant or from, where is it? I cannot see it now. It comes here. So Saturn here, all this white line, it means that for these countries, it's on the ascendant, and it goes very near Madagascar, Mogadishu, Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Kazakhstan, goes up Russia, these islands northern of Russia, and then goes through Vancouver, Canada. It also meets Mars, Uranus, Jupiter above Alaska in the sea there, and goes through the sea area near San Francisco, Los Angeles as well. So I think that's all I had to say for today, but I will check if I had something else. And we have reached the end of our weekly video. I don't know. We have reached the end of this video. And hopefully it's recording now. I'm not sure if I'm being heard, what is going on. I pressed something and I'm not sure what happened. Anyway, this is the end of the video. I will be with you very soon with another video, probably next week. Enjoy. Good night.